Alrighty, so pretty much similar pretty much same comps on both sides. Got a mix of heavies and a little bit of speed. So usually when I in a medium tank, I'll play this north area here. And again, the idea is that you want to deny them from coming into this area here. You don't want to camp back here because once they get up underneath you, if you can, you actually want to fall back out of there. It's actually difficult to fall back out of there though because you don't want to sit up there. It's just an open area where they can just rail on you. So you don't want to be there if you can potentially avoid it. And medium tanks tend to be a little bit too squishy to play on the south. Nobody can really play in the middle. There's just too many firing lanes through there, especially when there's 3 artillery. So let's see what your team does. And again, remember it's important 30, 60 seconds in the game, see what your team is doing. So you have an RU that's headed out this way. You got a 122-44 with you. It looks like your T-95 is eventually going to come to your direction. So that's something to keep in mind. But that it's going to take some time for that play to develop. You are top tier here, so you want to look to get that early shot into right there, especially if that T-49 tries to push across there. You want to get that free shot of damage. And ideally what you want to do is be a little bit closer to your RU-251. One of two things will happen. Either he spots something there and you can get shots on him, or if he gets pushed, you need to be there to help protect him because he's an important player right now. See how that T-49's across, and you're not in a position to, I'm sorry, that Indian is across, so you need to be in a position to cover this guy. There's no reason for you to back off. You need to get that shot. You had an opportunity where you could have taken down that T-49. And then now there's 2 tanks out there, whereas if it was only the one, it would have made it a lot easier for you. And then you need to be careful in that position. Again, once they get up underneath you, it's very, very easy for artillery to bomb you out there. Lol. And then you can potentially push this AMX-30 if you want. You know the Indian's going to be in the back someplace. Unfortunately, most of your team is still playing pretty passively. The T-95 stopped back here. And you're in a bad position. You may not realize it, and this AMX-30 might not realize it, but it would be very easy for this AMX-30 to abuse you in the position that you're at, given the fact that he's already across. And so the Indian is still back there, so that AMX-30 is still in a vulnerable position. And sniping is not really the Patton's strong suit. Like, it's got an okay accuracy on the gun, but yeah, it's, you know, the 500 meter shots are not its strong suit. As you can see. And then again, you're benefiting from the fact that this AMX-30 is not pushing you right now, so you have to understand that. You also have to understand that you're losing down here, so it's time limited. There's a limited amount of time for which you have to make a decision on what you want to do. And if you're not going to win this side, you need to go and help these guys. You don't want to just wait for them to die and then do something. And so the easiest thing to do would be to clear this guy out, which is something that you guys could have done earlier. But see now how everyone's shifting back. And so all that your team has done is your team has sacrificed map position. That's all that they've done so far. Probably don't do a little bit less auto aim on those 200 plus meter shots. You want to be in sniper mode a little bit more. See how this 30 is pushing you now? This is something that he could have done a lot earlier to put pressure on you. And then it's very, very difficult because once you come out here, right, you can get shot by that JT over there, you can get shot by artillery over there, and the only thing that you could do is YOLO him, right? And so that's why that position is so powerful. So you need to be careful. And again, you always have to remember, what is it that you are afraid of, or what is it that you should be afraid of? You should be afraid of that JT shooting you. You know that you can shoot, that he can shoot you from right there. Do you know why? Because you shot at him from right here. So he can shoot you. So you're not afraid of this AMX-30. You're afraid of that JT, and you should be afraid of that artillery. And now you need to push him, because you need to clear that out. There's going to be an Indian behind him, but the Indian is also something that you can deal with pretty easily. No, kill the 30. You can ram the 30 even. That was a good use of the auto aim. And then again, understand what it is that you're afraid of. You do not want to drive at this Indian, because if that JT is over there, that JT can still shoot at you. The artillery can still shoot at you. You want to be as close to this wall as possible. No matter where you go, right? If you get closer to this Indian can still shoot you, right? If you get further away from this Indian can still shoot you. If you go that way, this Indian can still shoot you. If you go that way, this Indian can still shoot you. There's nowhere that you can go where this Indian can't shoot you. Therefore, you need to be concerned about everyone else shooting you. Go, Mantlet. Okay. And then now, unfortunately, so this was a game where your team basically gave up a lot of map control, right? And these guys all shrank down here. So what you need to do is you need to try to get into a position where you can cover this area of the map, because they're going to start pushing up on this side. And so you can sort of do that from here, only if they're going into a bad position like that T-71, but hey, I'll take it, right? No auto aim there. Especially when their midline is below that area. And again, you see how that artillery shell landed right here? You getting closer to that JP didn't make it more difficult for him to shoot you. It didn't make it easier for you to shoot him. All it did was just expose you to more outside lines of fire. And you know that their JT is still camping up there? Okay, so the good and the bad. So you came out this way, and that's fine. You didn't really have that much support, but you did nothing to try to prevent them from coming into this area. They literally drove in here 100% free. The T-49 wasn't even spotted until he got up underneath your Wheezy or whatever it was that was over here. And so that's or I guess it was an RU. And so that's a problem. And again, all you got to do is be a little bit more forward, and you can get that T-49 coming in. I would have gone all the way in, especially when they don't take this area early. You don't want to give them this area for free. You want to make them pay for this area, because once they get up underneath you, they can really own you up on this plateau. This JT can get shots into this area. Artie can get shots into this area. And the only recourse that you have is to counter YOLO. And that's not what you want to do. What you want to always do is get shots on these guys on the way in. Get shots as they're crossing into this area. Get shots as they're crossing into this area. Right? Get your free damage in. Like, that's really important in those types of trades. Again, you guys benefit from the fact that once they moved up here, they were really passive. They didn't pressure you at all. But it still was a big problem for your team overall, because your team never had any map control. Right? Your team was always camped back. Your South team lost badly, but that's going to happen, and you need to recognize that. And you spent far too much time up here just kind of hanging out and not pressuring the situation. You could have cleared that pretty easily, especially when the Indian wasn't there to back up the AMX-30. The AMX-30 was already at half health. You could have bullied him, and then retaking control of this area, which meant that you might never have lost control of this area, because you could then defend through there. And so that's potentially a problem because that's how your guys ended up losing inside the base. Well, one, they drove back to the base, but two, they basically ended up getting backdoored by 2 light tanks, which is, it happens, I guess. So you just want to be careful about being too passive when you have an advantage. Make sure that you, if you have an opportunity to crush a side, that you crush that side, especially when you know that you're losing the other side. You have to make that conscious decision of, if everything is going well on the south, you can play more conservatively up here. You're like, oh, okay, that AMX-30 is at half health, but he's also got an Indian back there, so maybe I'm a little bit afraid of that because I don't really have any backup. But that's not what was happening. You guys were losing over here. If you're winning, sure, you can be as patient as you want. But if you're losing, you need to make something happen. And so you need to think about that when you're... And you had plenty of time to sit there and think about it because you weren't really shooting at anything. You were just kind of hanging out for a while. So make sure that you keep yourself active, whether you're keeping an eye on what's going on the other side or figuring out how you can win your side. All right, so if we look at stats, not bad. I mean, neither team did exceptionally well there. It was relatively good shooting. Again, those shots at where the JT T71 was. Those are really hope shots. Those are shots that you can take when you really don't have anything better to do. But you should always question yourself whenever you find yourself sniping at 500 meters in any tank. Really, you should question, at least during the reloads, could I be doing something else right now that'd be more productive for my team? So you should think about that. Otherwise, GG. Nice try. Oh yeah, and you just play smarter defensively. I think one of the problems that people have is that they don't fight other tanks enough. Like the only time a lot of people fight other tanks is when they're about to die. And like if you watch our stream, we're constantly engaging something whenever we possibly can. And I think when you start doing that, when you start getting in those knife fights more often, you'll have better positioning. You'll have better defensive positioning. You'll have better positioning so you don't get shot by other tanks. That you'll get shot by other tanks less, where you'll get shot by artillery less because of your positioning. And a large part of it, like we said, is that if you can't get away from the guy that you're brawling with, right? Like when you were fighting that Indian Panzer, it's not like you could have driven anywhere where that Indian Panzer couldn't have shot you or you couldn't have shot the Indian Panzer, right? So what you should be thinking in that situation is, how can I get away from the rest of his team shooting me while we're still shooting each other? Because what you don't want to do is drive yourself into a position where it's easier for his team to shoot you, right? Because the only way that you lose to that Indian is if somebody else shoots you, right? Otherwise, you've got the health advantage, you've got the gun advantage, you've got every advantage there. So you should, everybody needs to work on that defensively. All right, so the next one is actually Toxie's Type 59. Because we never get enough Type 59s. Alrighty, top tier, which is good. Roughly the same comp. There's a little bit of speed up top, but not a whole lot. I mean, you've got a Centurion, which is not so fast on your side, and they have a Super Pershing, which is not so fast on their side. You can still play up through this 9-line area. Again, you always want to look and see like where your light tanks go. If they go spot up this 8-9, you want to make sure that you're in a position to get shots. If they don't, you could theoretically go up there in a Type 59, but you don't really get that good of shots from that position. Depending on where their team is. But you might want to get some intel. And so typically in a medium tank, I'll come over here to this 9-line and I'll start running this ridge, and if we get a light tank to spot, then I'll stop and get shots. And if not, what I'll do is I'll do a swoop up here to try to get some intel. You appear to not be loaded in, maybe? Something? There we go. Go, my man, go! I don't think your light tank is going to get you intel. He's getting intel on the lake, on the bottom of the lake. He reports that the crawfish crop is going to be good this season. And then you basically see how you've got a guy up here, so he's going to be able to get some intel, but it won't be until these guys are already embedded over there. So you can still come up through this area to find out what's going to be over in this area here, especially like see how this KP is driving up here. As you drive up over here, like you'll get better shots on that T-21 and things like that. The KP is a little bit too YOLO. You don't want to stop right here. This is not, you're not going to get a whole lot of productive shots this far back. You actually need to move a little bit more forward. And again, there's a big ditch right here that basically protects you from everything over there. So, and basically from that ditch, you can shoot where that T-21 is. There's a lot of buildings from this side. So, and then see how your guys are pushing up over here. So you want to be up with them, right? You see how they're pushing up on their side. That's good for them. You don't know what the numbers are, but it looks like they've at least got as many guys as you do over there. And if you can take out the indirect fire, or your team can take out the indirect fire, that's good for everybody. And see how long it took you guys to beat 0 tanks? Oh, okay, I guess there was 1 tank over here. I don't really count the artillery as a tank. He's not the guy that's really inhibiting you here. And so it took a little bit too long for you guys to do that. And again, you know, you don't want to sit too far back when you don't have intel. And if you're the fastest guy on the map, and you know, once your 12T decided to take a drink, a cool bath, you know, it's your responsibility to figure out what's ahead of these guys. Right, and then this is something that happens a lot. Like, that guy's obviously going to die before you're going to get there. You're losing over here. Right? There's no reason for you to drive all the way to this hill. You should have already been driving back here to try to defend this over here. And you do need to come back. Going forward is not an option here. There's a little bit too much hesitation. I mean, it's been, let's see, 3 minutes, and you've got 2 shots. Both on that already. And again, that's, you know, what we always say in the stream is that you want to make your contributions as early as you can. And that's not necessarily in getting damage or getting shots, but you needed to be leading that charge there, not the guy in the back sniping. And again, what you want to do is you want to move south over here to spot them as they cross across this bridge. Not only will that give you better shots, remember they don't have arty anymore, that will give you better shots, but you're also going to find them, it's also going to be more difficult for them to shoot back at you. And you can stay up on this top plateau over here, or you can even go down onto this lane over here, or if you want, you can even go over onto this, like, basically street over here. But you want to be a little bit more to the south at this point, especially since your artillery is moving out, because you want to get them as they're crossing that bridge. And again, this is not the snipey-dipiest of tanks, so that it's always, you know, a little sketchy to try to do that. And if you get a little bit more south, you can catch them coming across the bridge. Remember that. The only tank here that's faster than you is the CDC. Everything else is slower. So you can basically kite them. You're more worried about the T-44 than you are about the IS-6. And at this point, you're not really worried about the cap. You've got an FE-304, but you do need to take out that T-44. You cannot let him sit underneath you. And then see how you're coming up high over this hill? You have two options. You can either go through this ditch right here to get to him, or you can come around on this side to get to him. They do have a guy on the cap, but again, you're not really worried about that. Going over here not only takes longer than going around either side, but it exposes you to more fire. So you're not getting any speed advantage on this guy by driving over here, but you are defensively exposing yourself more. And this is not a very good shot, but if it goes, it goes. Oh, you're firing APCR. That's fine as well. And then all you gotta do is keep that guy lit, and your RD can take him down. But you can outrange him by basically sitting back up on this hill. There's nowhere for him to hide on the cap. You don't need to get close at all. Again, remember, close is his advantage, far is your advantage. So you don't want to give up your advantage for free. If he wants to charge across to try to close the gap, hey, that's fine. That's on him. But again, remember, you can outrange heavy tanks pretty easily in a medium. And then this E-25 is going to come down through this 9 line here, so you need to counter that before he kills your artillery. We don't know where the Oho is. He might be crossing the bridge as well, but you don't have the luxury of being able to get that intel. So now what you basically need to do is stay on the top of this ridge over here so that you can spot this lane right here, this lane right here, this lane right here, and this lane right here. Right? You don't want to sit so far back that by the time you spot things, they're already underneath you. You need to get shots on people on the way into you. You cannot get shots on them while they're already up on you. You want to create a distance for yourself. And that's really important. Whenever you're outnumbered, whenever you're out health, you need to find situations where you spot them coming in and you get your free shot of damage as they're coming in, and then you fall back and force them to come across another open area. You get your free shot of damage coming in. That's how you whittle people down. You don't whittle people down by letting them drive up underneath you and then spotting them. You need to spot them further out. Luckily, alright, go auto aim, it's fine. I'm getting whittled. And again, same thing for the rest of these guys, right? They're going to be crossing this center bridge here, this south bridge here. You need to spot them on the way in. You do not want to spot them like you spotted these other guys where it's already too late. Ruh-roh. You can basically hold down against this guy. Drove out a little bit too far. You didn't need to drive that far forward to shoot him. And again, you don't need to auto-aim this. You can basically shoot into his turret from where you're at and be relatively hulled down. But again, you need to spot those guys, right? You don't want to spot them how you spotted them, where that tiger is already 50 meters away from you. That's way too close. And again, their advantage is if they're really close to you. Your advantage is if you're really far away from them. Because what you want to do is you want to create that distance where you can spot the tiger. Because that tiger had to drive all the way across over here, right? So you want to be able to spot him as he crosses that distance and get 2 or 3 free shots of damage into him, right? You don't want to be in that situation where you spot him and he's 50 meters away. Because there's no recourse. Because he can close that gap in seconds, right? Before you can even get a chance to reload. And that's not what you want. You always want to create situations where you can spot them coming across gaps and get your free damage in. Because that's what you need to do in order to level the playing field. So otherwise, to talk about from the start of the game, you didn't load in until a little late, but you guys were a little bit slow on this side. You basically lost to no tanks because this Jackson didn't even reveal himself until too late. The first tank spotted on this side was their artillery that was spotted back here, right? And it wasn't by you, right? And there was no reason why you couldn't have driven up here and figured that out earlier. And then your team continued going on that way, but you had already lost this other side. And so it's important to come back. And again, what you want to do is you want to create that situation where they've got to drive up and keep your distance, right? This cap is really easy to defend, especially against heavies that don't have as good view range as you do. You can outrange them on this from this hill, from this side over here, from this area over here. So no matter where they are on the cap, especially when you still have your artillery up, you can light them. So you just want to keep your distance and just keep nibbling away at them. You don't want to have to close the gap unless you absolutely have to. So you always want to keep that distance if you can. All right, so if we look at the stats, both teams did about the same. 14 to 16 shooting is pretty good, so that's not bad. You just needed to be more. You needed to have fired 24 shots in the the game was 8.5 minutes long, right? You needed to fire about 50% more shots than you actually did. And that's why we talk about keeping your gun active. You don't want to go through these long periods of time where you're just kind of waiting. If you're waiting, you should be driving someplace else already. There's never any reason for you to be sitting around any place really for an extended period of time in a medium tank, because you have the speed to relocate. You're a top tier tank. This is technically a good map for you, especially once you take down the artillery, because you can hold down in a lot of areas. So you need to be sure that you're active and doing things for your team early rather than trying to rescue everything late. But GG, nice try. Alright, so the next game is from 913. Alrighty, fairly similar comps. They have a little bit more tank destroyers, especially up top. So that tends to be a little bit more campy. There's one reasonably big sized artillery. Especially in the 140, the best thing to do is to basically secure this hill. You want to start heading up here as soon as possible, and then basically as your heavies or other tanks push up, you can then fall back once you maintain control of the top of that hill. But let's see what your team does. Well, it looks like your mediums at least are headed towards the hill, which is a good sign, for the most part anyways. You got a couple of heavies going field, which is not good, but Unfortunately, people like dying in the field. And you can take a reasonably direct route there. Again, you can get spotted from this area right here as you pass by the church. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. You do have a number of your mediums actually coming up here to support you, though, so that's a good sign. And unfortunately, you got a couple of heavies headed back towards your artillery, which is not so good, but what you gonna do? And really, the best thing to do is to come up here, try to secure this lighthouse, and then fall back. If you get up here and there's nobody here, right, they don't have a whole lot of speed other than their WZ-132. And it's always best, if you're as you're coming up this hill, to go up this ditch right here, not to take... Oh, wrong button. Not to take the actual road, because the road allows you to get spotted by those guys over there, and also allows artillery to shoot you, which is not good. So the Action X is on this side, which is good. You're not going to really get a good shot on him right now, so I wouldn't really worry about it too much. Again, that Action X, not killing you. What you need to do is you need to prevent them from getting this lighthouse, because that could kill you. So you got an E50M up here. And then really, once you secure it, you can leave. And then you can go back and shoot at that Action X all you want. And the best thing to do is to either peek around on this side over on the red line over there, or you can come up on this little hill right here, which will allow you to spot down there. They have a groove on their side. But once you keep them in the back, once you prevent them from pushing forward, that's perfect. That's all you need to do. You keep them in that kill box, and your guys will whittle them down eventually. What you don't want to do is you don't want to let them out of that kill box, right? The only way that they can get out of that kill box is to drive forward or to drive backward. If they sit there, well, there's a reason why it's a kill box. You do need to get some shots here, though, so that's good. And again, it's better if you're on this side of the lighthouse, because it gives you protection from the indirect fire. Right now, your gun's just not active enough. You need to keep them back. Even if you get shot once, you need to keep them back. And if they're going to sit there, again, that's a huge advantage to your team. All you got to do is stay in your little protected area. And you can drive forward a little bit, especially when you know that the artillery just fired, right? Use that window. He just fired, you can get another free shot on him. You have a faster fire rate than him. He's not in a good position. You can kill that guy. Like, nobody can shoot you other than the artillery right now. You've got them in a bad position. You got to be able to take advantage of it. Like, there's too much dead time where you're loaded, but you're not shooting anything. And if you're going to stay lit, you know, if you're going to expose yourself, you're going to be lit the whole time, you might as well be shooting something. But that's fine. They sat in the kill box, and again, like, notice what happened to them. They basically pushed most of the way up, stopped, and then now they're slowly retreating back. And all through that time that they're doing that, they're getting shot. And your guys up on this hill aren't trading super well, but it doesn't really matter because they're just in such a bad position. And so, see, you never want to go where this guy, like, when you look ahead and you're like, oh, look, that guy's almost dead. You shouldn't be thinking to yourself, hey, look, that guy's almost dead. I should go up where his position is, right? Because when this guy came up here, he had pretty close to full health. But this is not a very good position. You don't really get good shots on these guys. You get much better shots from up over there without the chance of being shot from this area down here, which is basically what you have to do, because you have to drive up this hill to get shot. And you're going to struggle to damage that E100 frontally like that anyways. And again, you know, where are these guys going to go? They're not, you know, about to charge up the hill now. It's like there was this meme from a long time ago where it showed like there's a dead tank here, there's a dead tank here, there's a dead tank here, and then there's a live tank in your position right now, and it says, guess what happens next? It's like whenever you see that, and it's the same thing like if you're these guys on this side and there's a trail of dead tanks that go up here, you know, you should be able to tell like what's a bad position based upon all the dead or dying tanks that are around you. You should also be able to tell from the fact that you've been here now for, you know, about a minute. You've gotten 4 shots, maybe 5 shots. You've done 0 damage. Okay, you just damaged that guy. But you know that's not a good trade rate for you. Lucky that this E100 is not the awesomest. Oh, you can get a lower glacius, my man. Shooting the police bar is not super reliable. Shooting the lower glacius is pretty reliable. Luckily, their artillery is pretty bad as well. And then I'm not sure what you're doing right this instant, but you have 2 options. You can charge the E75 with your friends, or you can go back around through this middle area down here. And again, like where you're at is not a super safe position because they can shoot through this gap right there, and additionally artillery can hit you as well. But, like, look how many tanks they lost on that line, right? They lost their 2 10s, their E75, 2 9s, and an 8. Your team didn't trade super well, but that's okay. And then you kind of do want to go up kind of where this M103 is going. It's a reasonably good position. You can, if he's already there, what you can do is you can move down this 0 line or even down the 8 line there. You want to be careful sliding down hills, especially nowadays. Your M103 pulled the classic problem of being afraid of the wrong tank. He was afraid of the T-34, and so he backed up into an area where the artillery could hit him. Again, you always want to be able to identify defensively what is it that you're really afraid of. And so you know that the T-34 is down here. Presumably those tank destroyers are either camping back here or camping across over here. So you want to be careful if you approach the T-34 through the water, because if they are in the base, they can shoot you. If they're not in the base, then you're safe. So one of the things that you can do is we can watch and see what this guy does, but you can at the very least move up, because you know that they're not going to be on this side of the lake. So you can move up to the other side of this T-34. What that's going to do is that's going to put you in a position to help out your guys over here. Fine, firing through the bush is good. You still want to move forward if you can. You don't want to play too far back here. You don't want to hang out in the area that you're at. And you need to be careful driving out over here, because you can remember the T-34 is down there, so he can shoot you. So the JPE is driving out here. So what you want to do is you want to, if you can get up this hill, that's what you want to be able to do, because you want to make it a situation where if he wants to come after you, he's got to come up this hill, because that's going to give your artillery good shots. And if he doesn't, then you can get good shots on him. Right? You're playing this sort of mid-range game right now, which isn't super favorable to you. If you've got supporting fire, you can play a mid to close range game. but that's not really what you have right now. So again, this is a position where if you were already in this groove up here, that would make it a lot more difficult for that JPE to continue to move forward. If you allow him to just drive at a straight line at you, eventually he's going to get to you to where you're at. Right? You need to get out to an oblique angle where he's got to make a decision. You need to get some shots here, like this T-34, right? Look at where this T-34 is right now. He's crossing a big open area. All you got to do is pull forward over here. The only guy that can shoot you is him. Get your free damage. And so you're allowing them to just get a little bit too close now. And again, if you can get out to an angle, that would be ideal, because you're not going to be able to beat all three of them at once. If all they have to do is just keep driving in. Lol. Lol.
Повреждение гусеницы. Шанс разрыва увеличен. Цель понял. Наводчик контужен. Разброс увеличивается. Пробитие.
Just don't get ran by the JPE. You don't want to like take such a curvy route, ideally speaking. You also, there's no need to rush that shot. You can still shoot at the Centurion. You want to be careful, even ramming him backwards, he can kill you. You still want to get a shot on that Centurion. Not so that you drive in front of the JPE. And then ideally you want to be on the other side of the JPE because you don't want the artillery to be able to splash you. Although the artillery might be occupied by your T-54 proto, so that's good. Just capping them out. Alright, and then you want to get to your guys as quickly as you possibly can. It looks like he's playing Ring Around the Rosie, which is good. Break out wide and you can get a shot. Because he's got to come around on your guy. Oh, and he just missed. You need to get out wide so you can get a shot here. He's going to charge your guy. So you want to actually just go on the same side of your... Well, okay, now if he slows down and stops, yeah, you want to go down the other side. Rush the shot? Panic much? There you go. Alright, that's what we're looking for. Okay, so a number of things. So you headed up towards this area, which is fine. Again, you want to be more in that ditch back there. It's not your job to spot things right there, because if you get lit right there, it's pretty easy for me to hit you with an artillery, even if you're in a medium tank, because you're doing a climb right there. And so what you want to do is you want to secure that area. Luckily, they didn't send anybody up here at all. And then they basically sent guys to the kill box. And again, if you're the south spawn team, don't sit in the kill box. You either move forward, you move back, or you don't go there at all. You don't want to sit in any area like that where you can basically get shot by everybody for free. Even though your team didn't trade very well, you could have shot a lot more while you were up there. You had a lot more hold down opportunities where you could have shot at either that I think it was like a Indian or no, it was a Moots or the other tanks that they had up there, the Conqueror and whatnot. But your gun wasn't nearly active enough, especially once you're loaded. You want to be in a position. You knew that artillery already fired because he killed that guy that was right next to you. And so when that occurs, you know that you only need to worry about direct fire for 30 to 40 seconds. So you need to get in while the getting's good. And again, you never want to go to bad positions. If you ever find yourself in a medium tank and you're not getting very good shots, like you weren't getting very good shots on that E100, you need to relocate. It's not a good trade for you. All you're doing is you're overexposing yourself to being shot either by the E100 or by their artillery, and so you want to always be in a position where you're trading a little bit better. If you're shooting 4 or 5 shots, in a minute, that's great. But if you're doing maybe 1 shot of damage in that minute, right? You're overexposing yourself to get 1 shot of damage. That's just far too much. And so you overexposed yourself a little bit too much there. You underexposed yourself a little bit too much, or a little bit too little earlier. And so you need to find that balance of keeping your gun active when you have an advantage, and recognizing when you don't have very good shots and you need to do something, go someplace else or do something else in order to get better shots. And then as these guys were coming across here, again, you don't necessarily want to retreat straight away from them. I mean, if you're going to use straight speed, you need to get basically at the maximum view range distance to get shots on them. I really felt like all you had to do was just go halfway up the hill in that ditch, and you could have really countered that push very easily, because they wouldn't really have been able to push across through here very easily. They would have had to turn to deal with you, which would have given your artillery better shots. You would have been in a ditch. You would have been hauled down. You would have had the option to go up the hill if they tried to pursue you. You always want to have some sort of exit plan. And then, you always need a little bit of luck on the 3v1s, and you did a good job of killing that JBE. So there is that. And so if we look at the stats, neither team did exceptionally well. They both ended up about the same. 28 to 33 is pretty good. 24 pins. Most of those ricochets were on that E100 face, which is going to be a little bit sketchy, which is why it's not ideal to be shooting at the turret of an E100 in a medium tank. Not if you've got other options. Anyhow, GG. Well played. Again, the important thing from that match is, recognize when you have an advantage, recognize when you have windows where artillery is already fired, and take advantage of that. And similarly, recognize when you're in a position that doesn't really give you an advantage, and make sure that you relocate out. And that's the advantage of, that's the good thing about being in fast medium tanks, is that you can relocate anywhere you want. You can go anywhere at any time. So just make sure that you make use of that. Alright, and so for funsies, we'll look at Rabid's SU-100Y. Because how often do we get to review 100Y? Music. I don't know why, but sometimes it randomly turns all the audio, like... It's when I go back to the 913 client and then come back to the 914 client. It's very odd. Okay, anyhow, 100Y, basically the same comp, Fjord, it's not a great map. 100Y is kind of slow, it's got a big gun on it. It is really tall, it doesn't have much alpha to, I'm sorry, it doesn't have much camo to speak of. But the alpha on the gun is actually pretty nice. And so you can go either way. I usually like to get set up to get shots right here if our guys push in on that side. You don't need to take this route. This route's a little bit long, but okay. It doesn't really matter too much because you're not really going to be the guy that's pushing up there. But you do want to get shots into that area, especially if these guys actually push up to spot there, which it doesn't currently look like they're going to do, but you never know. And you don't want to push too far forward here because it's very easy to get lit in this tank from over here. And then again, the bad part about where you're at right now is that once they push into this ditch, you can't get shots on them because of that house. So you should actually be aiming a little bit more up here by these trees. But let's see what happens. Well, that's a thing. And again, you can't get shots on that guy because of your position. You need to be a little bit more on that other side. Can potentially... Oh, look at that. Look at that Russian accuracy at work. And again, so they're going to start pushing in over here. You've got a bunch of slow rollers there, but that's not really too much to worry about at this point. You guys have moved through here, so you want to kind of keep an eye on this because their team hasn't really moved that far forward there. You got more than enough here, so if these guys push in here, you actually need to help these guys over here by coming up over the top. Like, if you're not going to get shots here, you need to be going someplace else, even in a tank destroyer. And so you can potentially play through this ditch right here, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. It's really easy for artillery to hit you. But it looks like they're counter pushing your guys, so that might be the only bet you have. The Cromwell and the Skoda just went in the ditch. Those are your primary targets, this Cromwell and the Skoda. Keep that A43 and the Chafee alive. Not the T150. Not the T150. You got guys dying like right below you. Kill that T25. Not the T50. Not the T50. T50's not killing anybody right now. Okay. Well, they were the Chafee and they were able to take out that guy, so that's a good sign. So your guys are getting shot up here. Now you can worry about the T50. So now you don't have to worry about the T50, T150. I don't think you're gonna get very good shots on the OI from right here unless he moves forward. So you're actually better off coming back up to this center line here and getting a free shot of damage before your Churchill dies over there. You don't really have the speed to get over to the OI. I wouldn't worry about the OI right now. It doesn't look like he's going to push it out, but these guys definitely going to push that Churchill. Right, and this KV-85, not sure where he's going, but again, you still have this opportunity to help these guys over here. This T-150 doesn't appear really willing to spot this guy. This KV-85, even if he spots him, it's not super likely that you're going to have good shots. But eventually, these guys are just going to drive in behind you, right? And so you want to be able to preempt that move by already being up there. Oh, look, he is over here. Good for you. And then these guys are going to come up behind you. But we knew this already. And so what you wanted to do is get them while they still have to drive across that big open area there. Lol. And then at this point, you can't over pursue the Hellcat because the ELC is still going to be a problem for you. You need to kill the ELC. Those guys are on their own for now. Just push the ELC. Just push the ELC. He didn't, I don't think he spotted you. I didn't see anything. So just push that ELC. Nah, too late. Okay, now you can go deal with the Hellcat because the ELC doesn't seem interested in playing this game. Even better. And then you can come back over through this middle area over here. You kind of want to keep an eye on where they're going. Looks like the ELC might be going back up there. It's hard to say where the T-67 is going. I would be wary about going all the way up there. I mean, what you can do is sit in the middle right here and facing north and see what they do. You don't necessarily want to push through there. Again, at this point, when the ELC is aware that you're the only, when you're going to be the focus of the ELC, you don't want to be too close to him. You want to be far enough away that you can shoot him. Because you don't want him to get up underneath you, you don't want him to get around on your sides. So again, this is a situation where you don't want to close the distance on them. Unless you think they're camping. And you got 9 minutes, which is plenty of time. Because right now, if these guys push this route right here, you're kind of boned. There's no reason for you to rush that shot, but okay. You don't need to push into a flank. Force them to come out over on you, if that's what they want to do. You've got them in a bottleneck right now. Again, this is the danger of playing a non-turreted tank destroyer. You don't want to be in a 1-2 situation. So you can actually even back up along here. You want to create that gap. You want to create that distance. Because really all these guys have to do to win is just charge you. Because you can't shoot them both. And you can peek and make sure that they're still here. Looks like they ran the other way, which is fine. You actually probably want to turn around and start going the other way, because you're not going to have the speed to catch up, and you need to get down here before they do. At least they're playing together. See how far apart you guys are? So if either one of you gets pushed, right, then the other one can't do anything. You need less talking and more actual playing. So you could even theoretically just get on cap at this point, because you're not going to be able to chase them down. And the difference is they're playing together and you guys are like half a mile apart. There's no real reason for you to push them right now. Because you're not going to get there in time. If you went back the other way, possibly. But there's no way. And then basically what you're doing is you're pushing into this area now where they can control the there's too many flanking lanes. Right. And then once they get on one person on either side of you, then you're pretty much toasted. And again, this is the exact same situation that you were in up here. Okay, so there were a number of problems there. So going right here was fine. That's not that big of a deal. Make sure that you get shots over into this area. And even once that occurred, right, you had a bunch of your guys pushing here, which is fine. Your guys needed help down here, so you came over here. That's also fine. You want to make sure that you save those guys in the water, right? Because those guys were weak. These guys weren't really a threat, but these guys charged in after your team. So you need to punish that because they're out in the open, right? And they're shooting at your guys. So you need to make sure that you take that down. And then what you need to do is you need to come back up here and shoot these guys right here for free. And again, whenever you get a chance, you want to be shooting at people across this long distance here. And then pretty much afterwards, yeah, I mean, it happens. Like they're let's see, what was it that was over here? It was the ELC. No, the ELC went down this way through the south. And they had I forget what it was. Maybe the T-25 or something that was pushing at your arty, and you got killed by the arty. Oh no, it was a Hellcat, I think. Anyways, they had a tank that came over here, and again, that was a situation where they could have had you in 1-2s if they wanted, but their guy actually pursued after the artillery instead, which, you know, whatever. And so you need to be able to deal with that, and that's the problem with the non-turreted tank destroyer, is that you don't want to play into that situation. You want to play into a situation where you've got them through a funnel, or you can get them in an ISO situation, neither of which is what you did. And especially once you were up here and you recognize that they left, there was no reason to pursue them down this path. You weren't going to catch up to them. You're not faster than them. What you needed to do is you needed to turn around and to plot an intercept course. It was fairly obvious what they were doing in terms of going around together. And the reason why they won is because they had two tanks that just stayed together at the end of the day. It took them an hour and a half, relatively speaking, to kill that bishop. And if at any point in that time you could have just shot either one of them, the game would have been over and you would have won. All right, and so if you look at the stats, where'd it go? Okay, there it goes. Yeah, neither team did exceptionally well. Would have been a little bit nice if your Chaffee and the A43 that went into the ditch did a little bit better, but that'll happen. And you only got 7 shots in that game, which was a little unfortunate, but a lot of that, you know, with a slow tank destroyer, you're not going to get, it's difficult to generate shots. But a lot of it is, you know, you need to be able to predict based off of the map what's going to happen. Like, you should have understood that you were going to lose the north, and that you had an opportunity to get some shots up there that would have made the difference. And so, as far as playing tanks like the SU-100Y or the T-95 or T-28 or T-28 prototype, or, you know, any of those slow tank destroyers, a lot of it is just pre-planning based off of what your team sees, what your team is doing. If your team is pushing into an area, are you someplace where you can support them? If your team is getting pushed in an area, are you someplace that can support them? How do you get to someplace that can support them? And so you should think about it that way. I think too often when people play slow tank destroyers, what they do is they just wait in an area and hope that the enemy comes through the area that's right in front of them. And I think you need to be a little bit more proactive than that if you want to win more games. So it's just about reading the map and making sure that you're positioned accordingly. Anyhow, GG. Nice try. Try not to get yourself in 1-2s with a non-turreted tank destroyer.